Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, a look at what it's like to live on Windsor's streets. Plus, remembering the Pope Emeritus at the Vatican and here in Windsor. As young people in need learn new work skills, they give back to the community with donuts. And from ice to fog, Colette Kennedy will break down why that's happening with this shifting weather. We begin tonight with an up-close look at homelessness in our city. Renting in Windsor is not easy, and finding something affordable can be even more difficult. As of mid-December, the wait list for affordable housing in Windsor was just under 6,000. While many are underhoused or couch surfing, others end up on the street. Mike Evans and Stacey Janzer looked into the wait list and what this means for those on it. Evans spoke with 25-year-old Seth Lobb. He's been surviving living on the street. He says after he saw his mother go through a traumatic incident, he ended up in foster care. That was until 5 years ago when he aged out and had nowhere to go.
I find like other people will sometimes break in sheds, backyards. I've seen people do phenomenal things. They're literally scale schools and you name it just to stay safe. I've seen people sleep in sewers just to stay warm. And as much as that's a health hazard, I'd rather be warm and sleeping with my homies knowing I'm safe than to be stuck down an alley alone. It's gonna get cold this winter. I was so frozen. If Buddy literally did not wrap me in a blanket, I would have died last night. And I'm not kidding. I couldn't feel my fingers. I couldn't feel my body. No, that's not because I was high, drunk, or whatever the heck stigma you want to place on it. Sometimes you're wet, you're hungry, and everything hurts because you're just carrying everything you need because you have to.
You told me that you don't get a lot of sleep being out on the street. Tell me why.
Well, like when you're sleeping on the streets, it's a sidewalk. There's street lights, there's sounds. And when you're a light sleeper and have sensory issues like I do, it's unfathomable how it's more precious than gold, sleep. How are we supposed to know what we want in life if we're not dreaming?
Seth, you said you do a lot of thinking.
Yes.
What is your thoughts about trying to get off the street at this point?
I'll live on the streets, honestly, till the day I die, but if that's the way it's gotta be, that's the way it's gotta be. You only need 5% to put down on a house. I'm pretty sure we got a bunch of abandoned schools that could fix that. But we gotta stay positive and look at the better perspective and hope that one day better days are coming. And hopefully this message brings some better days.
The Windsor-Essex Community Housing Corporation says as of December 16th, the total number of people waiting for affordable housing was 5,962. The Priority 1 list for those who are victims of domestic violence and human trafficking is at 66. Priority 2 for those who are homeless and other local priorities sits at 481.
Here on Crawford Avenue, this apartment will house 15 youth at risk of homelessness. It's slated to open early this year. Ami Patel, the CFO of CHC, gave me a tour of one of the units.
This is essentially, this will be common area, common kitchen space, living room space there, common washer and dryer area. This is one of the bedrooms. They're all similar.
Patel says the main floor is barrier-free with 3 bedrooms and a bathroom that is wheelchair accessible. It's in partnership with Family Services, so this project won't cut down the affordable housing list. But by the end of the year, the city's expecting to have 210 more units available, 109 of those going toward affordable housing. Of those projects, the biggest one is here on Meadowbrook. It's a 10-story apartment building with 145 units. 76 of those will be for low-income earners. The remaining 69 will be set at market price.
The idea there is we don't want to be congregating people where traditionally you would have had just low-income families all together in what you would see as projects. We don't want to do that. That's how housing was built in the 50s and 60s. And now the model is to have a mixed income approach where you have people with different ranges of incomes, different socioeconomic backgrounds, living together and creating a community.
Meanwhile, the local housing stock for CHC is about 50 years old. These Glengarry buildings were constructed in the 60s. Old stock means lots of repairs. Patel says CHC has been working on a multi-year development plan to revitalize the area's assets. There's a $170 million capital plan in conjunction with the federal government through CMHC and the city, all putting in money to make those repairs.
There's just a really big need for housing in our community. And again, it will take all levels of government, public sector, private sector to come together to address these issues. We are a city here in Windsor that was small, that we're growing into a bigger city that has bigger city issues, more urban issues, and we really need to start addressing them.
Patel says funding for these new builds comes from all levels of government, and after the set of new builds this year, there are no new ones on the horizon yet. And there's also no bylaw requiring new builds to have affordable housing units like Toronto passed in 2021. Stacey Janzer, CBC News, Windsor.
The Bridge Youth Resource Center in Leamington has a unique program designed to help underprivileged youth find jobs. And as Dale Molnar reports, it also helps satisfy the sweet teeth in the community.
As you can see, everything is made the old-fashioned way, by hand and with love.
Kaylee Simpson supervises Trevor Montague in making donuts in the kitchen at the Bridge Youth Resource Center in Leamington. Simpson is the kitchen coordinator for the agency's various food programs, including Community Donut.
I think we're a pretty dynamic donut duo.
Simpson and Montague make about 120 donuts to order every week that are sold in the community. The Community Donut program helps disadvantaged youth get employable skills while also raising awareness of the bridge in the community.
We've done different markets as well. So recently we attended the Migration Festival and Cindy's Market. And so there's the working with the customer and the client and getting our name out in the community. And part of the program is that the proceeds go right back into the program itself and help us with expenses and hiring a youth baker.
Simpson is a full-time staff person at the center. Montague is a youth who lives in the shelter at the center and gets paid minimum wage, 10 to 15 hours a week, making the donuts.
Tell me what your thoughts, what this means to you.
This is a great opportunity to get some work experience and to give back to the community.
If you didn't have this, what do you think? Where would you be?
Like if I didn't live at the bridge, or
Yeah, and all that, and the help that you get here. Are you thankful for that?
I would be homeless, yes.
You'd be homeless, eh?
Yes.
So then once we are done finishing dipping our donuts, the drying time varies.
What do you think of this program?
I love it. I do. I think it's a great opportunity for our youth for employment, and it spreads awareness about the bridge.
What do you think of the taste of your donuts?
They're amazing. If you haven't tried them, you must try them.
Better than Calisani's.
Better than Calisani's? Really?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Trevor Montague is the second youth this program has helped.
Now, if you want to order a dozen donuts or so, go to Community Donut on Facebook or Instagram. Good donuts. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Leamington.
Tens of thousands of people are paying their respects to former Pope Benedict XVI. He is lying in state at the Vatican until his funeral later this week. The body of the Pope Emeritus arrived at St. Peter's Basilica this morning. Benedict will lie in state until Wednesday before his funeral on Thursday. Pope Francis will preside over the funeral mass, the first time a pope will be buried by his successor. Benedict died on Saturday at the age of 95. He retired from the papacy in 2013, the first pope to step down in 600 years. He's also being remembered here in Windsor at Assumption University.
I'm going to remember him as an intellectual titan, someone who has spent his life teaching about Catholic thought, Catholic theology, and philosophy. And I think that's how he's going to be remembered in the church. There's already discussion going on within the church that Benedict XVI might be regarded as what we call a doctor of the church, someone whose intellectual contributions are so great that they have this special title, Doctor of the Church, which means a teacher of the church. And there are already 37 doctors of the church, males and females, and I potentially think that Benedict might be number 38.
Well, Pope Benedict was also described as a polarizing figure by some. Some described him as a bit more radical, following Pope John Paul. What do you think his legacy is going to be?
It's a difficult question. Legacy is always in the eyes of the beholder. I think that with Benedict XVI and John Paul II, the substance is the same between the two popes. They were both considered what we would call conservative popes to some degree, but the approach was different. John Paul II was a little bit more pastoral in nature. Benedict XVI was much more cerebral. And I think that's the difference between the two. But if we're going to talk about Catholic doctrine, both of them were on the same page. So they're very similar on that regard.
His papacy was also overshadowed by a lot of sexual assault allegations among the clergy. And I'm wondering what you make of how he responded to that at the time and what that long-lasting impact is now.
I think Benedict continued what John Paul II started towards the end of his papacy, to root out all those, try to root out all the abuse that was going on in the church, and to continue that stance of ensuring that abuse against children, against anyone, is rooted out of the church. But I think more work needs to be done in order to rectify those issues that have unfortunately infiltrated the church. And even Francis himself is continuing with those efforts of trying to make sure that abuse doesn't happen, and then also that support is there for the survivors of clergy-related sexual abuse.
I also have to ask about the fact that lately there seems to be a bit of a reckoning, questions about what it means to be a Catholic. That seems to have been shifting, and I'm wondering what you feel like the role of the Pope is today and how Pope Benedict helped kind of shape some of the changes that have happened as well.
I think the Pope is, above all, a human being, and we need to recognize that. But they are to lead by example and to inspire the 1.3 billion Catholic faithful on how to live their lives. And I think that's the key with all popes, not just Benedict XVI. I think with Benedict XVI, he served as an individual who was, I found him very humble, and someone who I don't think really wanted to become Pope, but I think everyone thought he should have become Pope. So I think that's where we see Benedict XVI.
The OPP released details for funeral services for a slain officer. A private funeral service for Constable Gregory Pershala will be held on Wednesday. The public can attend the procession from the funeral home to Sadlon Arena in Barrie, but the funeral itself is private. Local road closures will be in effect. There will be an option for the public to gather in Caledonia, where the officer worked. Pershala was shot and killed while responding to a call in Haldimand County back on December 27th. The cost of living continues to rise for everyone, and with many Ontario seniors on fixed incomes, they're often the hardest hit. But as Ali Chiasson explains, some may be getting a bit of financial help this new year.
New year, same money pressures. Inflation affects everyone, but puts a particular segment of our population in a cost of living crisis. I'm talking about low-income seniors.
They are living right now in unprecedented challenges. House prices are going up, rents are going up, and those on a fixed income just can't afford to keep up with inflation right now.
There are at least 200,000 Ontario seniors in that vulnerable category.
They're making choices that are heartbreaking. They're making choices between things like food, heating, and medications. And nobody should ever be in the position for those to be having to decide to do an either or in those kinds of circumstances.
In Ontario, low-income seniors are eligible for Guaranteed Annual Income System payments, or GAINS as they're known. This year, the provincial government doubled the amount. Individuals can receive $166 a month. Couples can receive up to $332 a month. Diana Cable from advocacy organization CanAge says it's welcome news, although some will fall through the cracks.
The criteria for qualifying for the gains increase, you have to have been a resident for 10 years. So we will have people who maybe don't fall into that category. And the key thing here that we're very happy with at CanAge is that it is cash in the pocket. It's not just a tax credit.
Making it more accessible sooner, certainly helpful when supermarket prices continue to soar into the new year. In 2022, the price of fresh vegetables went up almost 12%, fresh fruit by nearly 13%. Bread was up by about 15%.
I think that it's important to remember that this is a great start because it was astoundingly low before. You know, the payments could range from $2.50 extra to $83 extra. Clearly doubling that is going to make a difference. Is it going to make enough of a difference? We're going to have to wait and see.
Seniors are eligible to apply for gains payments as of today. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A rescue story to share with you now out near Sudbury. That's a moose that fell through the ice into a lake. A quick thinking group of friends found a way to help. They put a rope around her neck and pulled this massive animal out of the water. One rescuer said the moose looked at them like she wanted to thank them. And really, the entire reason that we're sharing this story is for this line from one of the guys who helped, saying, quote, 2022 wasn't a good year. So when you could finish it off with something like that, then yeah, it's kind of a special moment for sure. Now here in Windsor, no moose out here on our ice, but some moody vibes. Frozen over for a part of last week, but remember the Coast Guard out breaking ice to free that stuck ship? Well, now warm temperatures have taken over the job. A rainfall warning is in effect late tonight through Tuesday morning, and Colette Kennedy, she'll be back with us right after the break and explain what's going on. It's time now for a look at our local forecast, and Colette Kennedy is here. Happy New Year, Colette.
Well, Happy New Year to you as well. Doesn't seem like
weeks.
January, does it? Yes.
It doesn't seem like January at all. We haven't seen you in a couple weeks, so it's always lovely to have you back.
Thank you.
And speaking of it not feeling like January, all that ice that we had, it's turned into fog, and we actually have some really neat images to show you, and I'm hoping that, Colette, you can talk us through what's been going on.
I'm going to do my best, but yes, look at these, right? I love it when parts of the structure just disappear like they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, look at, and I mean, I know it can be really difficult too, right? Like low visibility, terrible conditions for driving.
Sure. Gotta be careful.
But also it can be so beautiful and eerie and majestic, something about it as well,
that
right?
image of the bridge is amazing.
Just barely making it out. Some of these are going to be Pulitzer Prize winning images right here, let me tell you.
And Detroit, so that shot, you would have seen Detroit on the other side, but it's gone.
No, it disappeared. No longer there. Yeah, it really sets the tone, but more the tone that you might want, say, into an eerie kind of end of October towards Halloween. And temperatures as well, I might say, are more similar to something you might experience in October, not in January. And yet here is what we are looking at. We have advection fog, and you can have it forming for different reasons. Sometimes it's cooler air moving over the warmer waters of the lake, but really we're talking about mild, very moisture-laden air that's been pushing up from the Gulf, and it's coming over our cooler surface temperatures, so the ground is still quite cold. I mean, remember with some of the systems that we've had coming through, right? So then that milder air, as it moves over, it gets cooled by the ground. As it cools, it condenses, and basically we're finding then, once it's condensed, that it's got to form some kind of, the air molecule becomes saturated, some form of precipitation, or in this case, clouds or fog. So some low-level stratus clouds, we get into the fog, and something that could help with that would be some winds, some significant winds to mix this up, and that's something we haven't been seeing. But just another way to illustrate this is if you look at our current temperatures and then see just even at this point how close those are to the dew points, only a degree difference. So in terms of getting that being saturated, close again, looking at more fog development tonight, and another illustration where the winds, not much to them really, they're just not strong enough to mix up the air mass. Rain coming in overnight tonight. I expect it to be late overnight, so towards the early morning hours. And in these areas, winds are all the way to the Niagara region, 20 to 40 or 45 millimeters of rainfall. All of this associated with the storm system bringing the risk of tornadoes. These are all tornado watches down in the southern U.S. and then into ice storm areas, winter storm warnings, all of that coming through. But we're in the mild sector with this one. And so that is why, because of it, we are looking at it being rainfall. But the ground, it's either frozen or it's saturated, so nowhere for this to go. Flooding being a concern, and so what I would say to you, even some embedded thunderstorms, by the way, possible, is really make sure your downspouts are down and pushed away from the house. Any kind of storm drains are all cleared away. Temperature actually will be coming up through the overnight hours and then going all the way up to double digits tomorrow. Never mind October. I mean, I don't even know. It's gonna be feeling like we're in the spring. But we will not be, and we're going to deal with the heaviest stuff tomorrow, but even some rain into Wednesday as well.
Yeah, that's wild. And some more fog photography opportunities tomorrow.
Yes, those will be there too, if you can get it through the rain. But yeah, watch out on the roads too with that visibility reduced.
For sure. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we'll have some more news updates for you. Stay with us. The first Indigenous-owned bioenergy facility in Canada is now operating in Saskatchewan. It's part of the push toward clean energy. But getting this kind of project off the ground isn't quick or cheap. CBC's Bonnie Allen has more.
So ultimately, those are the raw logs coming in to North Sask.
This sawmill in northwestern Saskatchewan turns logs into lumber. And for decades, it had a dirty habit. A quarter of each tree was simply wasted, burned, in what's known as a beehive burner, one of the last in Canada, notorious for spewing pollution.
Okay.
But not anymore.
There is a substantial amount of waste. It used to go to the beehive. I don't know if you can kind of see it there. But now it's all conveyed directly to us.
The Meadow Lake Tribal Council is giving us an inside look at its newly constructed bioenergy center. It turns leftover wood chips, bark, and sawdust into heat and power.
Pretty amazing, first and foremost, that this whole facility is 100% Indigenous owned.
I can show you the fire itself in here, Bonnie.
The leftover wood is still burned, but in a way that reduces emissions and generates energy.
It's heating up thermal oil.
6.6 megawatts of power is then sold to the provincial grid, enough electricity for roughly 5,000 homes. Getting to this point has taken 14 years and $100 million.
All that biomass ends up in a bin.
About half of that money came from Ottawa's Green Infrastructure Program.
These are very expensive projects to undertake, and so without that assistance, this project would not have happened.
The pandemic and supply chain issues caused delays and cost overruns. There's also been a steep learning curve. Paul Apikaku monitors everything from wood chips going in to power going out.
It's good. It's exciting. Like, so now we got alarm, Mitch, thermal oil, low flow. Gotta go check.
All right. Thanks for your time. Some bioenergy facilities are controversial. They cut down trees for the sole purpose of generating power. But not this one. The Indigenous owners say they're just finding a way to use every fiber of the trees they've already harvested from their traditional land. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan.
And that is it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.